Hey, welcome back to the table, everyone. Today is the long-awaited, well, not really long-awaited because I mentioned it like a day ago, but we're going to play Halo. This is my son playing with me, so we're just going to play like a turn and then kind of summarize what we did. Now, this is pretty much all the contents from the Battle for Reach starter box, and I didn't count up points or anything like that. It was just simply just stuck everything on their bases and said, you know what, let's just throw them at each other. So what we have on the Covenant side is 3 battle groups. This here is we got 2 heavy corvette groups, and then it's got the supported battle cruiser, and then this group here is the ORS heavy cruiser, and it's supported, and then it's got a supporting heavy corvette group, and then again we got another battle cruiser and 2 supporting corvette units over there, and it's supported with this little buddy attached. So that's 3 battle groups for the Covenant. Now, to be fair, it does look like there's a lot more on the UNSC. So again, without calculating points, not really sure exactly how balanced the 2 forces are. So if I win, then that's the excuse, is I cheated because I just grabbed a whole bunch of stuff for the UNSC.
Covenant's going to win. Covenant's
going to win. All right, well, so this battle group here has got, I think you're allowed to have 2 capital ships. It said you had to have at least 1 capital ship and like at least one supporting. So I think this is a legitimate group, but it does meet the minimum of 6 battle rating. I think all his meets the 6. So this has got 2 heavy cruisers that are supported each, and then they got 2 escorting frigate units. And then this has got the Epoch carrier, which is supported. And then it's got 2 little frigate groups. This is a Trident, that's an Arrowhead. And then we've got 1 Marathon heavy cruiser that's escorted. And then another battle group centered around the supported Marathon heavy cruiser. And then these are all Arrowhead frigate formations. And then these were Trident, 2 Tridents formations. So we're going to give that a thought. Now, because my son and I, we haven't actually played this in a while, we're not going to include the boarding parties or the flights, which they're not that much more complicated to add, but because we haven't played, we thought we would just run through this, see what happens, and then later we might add flights and look at points and find a balanced game. But this is more of a refresh our memory. Now when we play though, we're not going to show you all the moves and everything. So this isn't going to be teaching rules or anything like that, because we, again, probably will muck it up. So we'll just come back after a turn and kind of show you the results. So again, with most games, since we're on the table here, we're going to come across straight at each other. And so the first turn might just be a couple turns of us moving towards one another. So we might not get any shooting for, a couple minutes. But we'll just come back and kind of give you little updates once in a while. All right, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you at the next update. Okay, we're going to summarize the end of turn 1 for you here briefly. The 2 fleets did come at each other just pretty much straight on, because there's really not any terrain to worry about maneuvering. And the first battle group that fired was actually his big ORS heavy cruiser. The Plasma Lance has a 32-inch range, and it fired. Luckily, he did fire at the Epoch heavy carrier, and it has pretty good defense, so it actually did deflect the shot, so that was very lucky for them. Once he gets into close range, however, then his Plasma Lance is even more likely to cause a lot of damage, because they get a bonus at short range. So I might want to try and keep to short range, simply because my missiles do better at long range, which I now remember. But anyhow, they fired first and survived, and then these 2 groups kind of moved, nothing happened there. They moved up, nothing happened there. But the most exciting part was with the hard burn. They moved up close enough to fire here. This group moved first, and they did some attacks, but that was easily repelled. But we fired the Marathon cruisers have really good mat cannons, and so they were able to combine their heavy mat cannons into an attack on this group here, and came away with scoring 2 solid hits. The mat cannon pre-roll to see if they applied any critical hit tokens, I forget what they're called now, but those critical hit tokens, that failed. So this was just straight up damage that we inflicted. And then finally, all of those ships fired their long-range missiles, and this is about 24 inches, so they were able to fire their long-range missiles, and we did score 1 hit. So even with his missile defense system, point defense system, and his shield array, we did get 1 hit on him. So lucky us. And that was the end of turn 1. That actually took us a little while to do, and luckily, to summarize it for you, only about a minute, 30 seconds if that. But that's where we are at the end of turn 1. And we'll just repeat and see what happens. So we'll see you around. Oh, now one thing, which my son and I completely forgot, is that we did roll our dice, did roll initiative, and then I totally forgot to even look at my commander card to see if there was any bonuses that I might want to apply. So we'll try to remember that this turn. He said he didn't want to be filmed, but he's making faces and
I'm not
stuff.
doing anything of the sort.
So he might get on camera if he does the goofy stuff. But yeah, if we remember, so he says that he's just begging for me to put the camera up while he's doing something goofy.
I'm really not.
Really not. If I just start to point the camera, anyway, he's a kid. Alright, so we'll pause that there and we'll be back at the end of turn 2. Welcome back to the table, and my son just said, if only the company hadn't died. We like this game a lot. I think this is probably our favorite space battle game. I mean, not that I have a whole lot, but the other one I got, Drop Fleet Commander, is like, we like it.
It's alright.
But we like well, 1, it's Halo, and 2, this is a bucket of dice game. So I know some of my viewers hate bucket of dice games, but we like bucket of dice games. Something very visceral about picking up 20 dice and saying, die, enemy fleet. But here's where we are. A lot more action happened this time. I don't quite remember the sequence of things because it takes a while to roll buckets of dice to determine stuff. But here's what we have left. I know we did end up destroying one of his Corvette groups over here with mat cannon fire, I believe.
Yep.
Which I don't remember mat cannons being so effective in the past, but
when you have that many of them aimed at one
target, because the mat cannons on the main ship is like 10 for the heavy, and then the little guys add in a bunch. So it was like a lot of dice I was rolling for the mat cannons, which just overwhelmed his little Corvette group. And then missiles here, he's survived much better against missiles. Then over here again, you didn't have any other escort, did you?
No.
Okay, so we put 1 point of damage on him. We did destroy a group here, and now he's got a vulnerable. We did forget to do our repair checks for vulnerable, so we'll do that right before we start our next turn. But a little bit of damage there. Now over here, they survived the beating, but they're not happy about it. So that's the only one that's unscathed so far. The rest of these guys, I think that was a vulnerable because this was a critical hit, so that did extra damage. But yeah, so they got beat up pretty good. They did destroy an element, but yeah, they took some damage for it. And these guys, they're doing a little bit of damage, but luckily they haven't taken any. And then over here, yeah, this guy's kind of got beat up too. So we have to roll to repair, see if we can repair these vulnerable tokens. But he's only got one little bit of damage left that he can take. So yeah, explaining what happened between the turns, well, it goes pretty quick. So this will be all said and done about like a 15-minute video, but it's taking us like 2 hours to play this little bit. But buckets of dice. Anyhow, yeah, that's where we're at. We're going to do one more turn, and then we'll do the post turn, and then we'll just save where we are, and we'll actually pick it up tomorrow because we each have short attention spans. So we'll do one more turn. I'll post this tonight, and then tomorrow I'll post the wrap-up game that we play, if we get to play it tomorrow. Yeah,
When you get off work.
Yeah, it just depends when I get off work and how I feel, but I definitely want to wrap it up. Oh, yes, and then for those who are paying attention, because I'm relearning the game, this is a completely illegal formation.
So what's the other one?
Yeah, this one's illegal too. So I was confused at first. So the battle rating thing, just to explain why I'm cheating for those who are not familiar with the game, basic group of ships can have what's called a battle rating of up to 6. And it includes 1 capital ship and 1 non-capital ship. And there's this little number here in the corner, which I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but that's a 3, that's a 1, that's a 1, that's a 3. Now, you technically cannot have 2 capital ships then like this, because that's 3, that's 3. That'd be your maximum of 6, but that doesn't meet the requirement of a capital and non-capital.
Well, actually, you could technically.
Oh no, because it has to have a capital and a non-capital. So you can't have 2 capitals if their battle rating equals 6.
But how do you know if it's a capital or not?
Oh,
It's just big?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. He asked, how do you know it's capital? Because right next to...
it says next to.
It says capital right next to it. So, basically...
I'm sure there's one you can find that doesn't have capital next
this
to it.
is illegal too, because it's got 2 capital ships, and then it's got the non... So these 2 battle groups are actually illegal. Now, what confused me was I was looking in the back, you can buy what are called specialty groups. So for each regular battle group you purchase, you can then get one of the specialty battle groups. And specialty battle groups can be higher than a battle rating of 9, because that's a formation that's unique to either the Covenant or the UNSC. And so that's where I was thinking I could have, as much as I wanted. So when we play again, we'll do better fleet building and make it better. So we're not going to count this game as like legitimate, because I realized I did cheat. Now, fortunately, my son is much smarter, and just by chance, all of his stuff was legitimate.
By chance.
By chance. We didn't know at the time.
Are you sure of that?
Oh, he says he knew all along. So just his dad is cheating.
Yes.
So anyway, that's what we got left. So we'll go ahead and do one more turn.
I wanted to give my old man a chance.
Give the old man a chance. Thanks, kid. All right, well, we'll go ahead and stop it there, play out another turn, and see how things look afterwards. We'll see how many more Covenant I destroy. And welcome back to the carnage. So this would be the end of turn 3 or 4? I don't even know. It all blends together at some point when you're not really tracking it. Okay, so we ended up killing off, I think, 2 groups here. So he's only got 1. This had a cruiser element and a corvette element, but those 2 are gone. But he's taken a significant amount of damage here. So hopefully one more turn he'll be dead. But he did put a devastating amount of firepower over here. We did finally wipe out one of the frigate groups here. This is, I think he finally took some damage. So he did take a point of damage. So distributed pretty well. I think even at blowing a hole there between the group, I think they're still within 6 inches of coherency, kind of measuring center point to center point. Yeah, so that is technically still a good... Okay, so just because I get some of the rules wrong doesn't mean I get them all wrong, but that is still a cohesive unit. I might want to tighten it up, but he could do that. The only problem is now that we just basically went straight at each other, it's going to come down to now, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where to set this so I don't have to hold it the whole time, is maneuvering so we don't collide. I had to go back and reread. I don't think there's really as much as collision rules as you just like back a ship up, or you redo the move and so they stop so they're base to base, and then like the next movement it would like move past or something like that. So there's really not like collision rules, but they are getting very, very close to each other. Now he was moving pretty much at full speed the entire game because he's trying to get to close range so he could bring his plasma weapons. They get +1, which pretty much makes them devastating at some point. And I was trying to move, I think the first turn I moved like with a hard burn, just to close the gap to put things in range. And then after that, I was just doing their half movement, the minimum half movement that they needed, just so they could, you know, maintain long range, because the missiles get +1, which I realize I did wrong. Thinking about it, okay, so I do get quite a bit wrong, but I think about it now. So this is the slowest ship in my group. However, his half move speed is slower than these guys, and so their half speed move, I think, is like 4 and his is 3 inches. I was moving these guys 3 inches because in my mind I was thinking move it the slowest group, but technically they can't move 3 inches. They had to move a minimum of 4. So I should have been advancing this group at 4 inches. It's fine. They're not a legal group anyway, so I was already cheating on that. But, you know, things to remember for next time. It is amazing how much of the game comes back. I was reading the rules last night. If you're interested, if you go to, I'm sure there's multiple Halo fan groups out there on Facebook, so I'm not sure which one I'm subscribed to exactly, but they have files, and one of the files is someone took the, I might have already mentioned this, I forget, but in case I haven't mentioned this to you, but they took all the like official errata and I think things that they were able to get from the community that were somehow validated by the company at some point, and they actually typed that into the PDF of the rule book. So if you go to their files section, I think they're on like version 2 of the rules, but it incorporates the errata changes, which is very, very cool. So you don't have to try and find the old errata, which really isn't available anymore. But it's in their rule book. So that was very cool. Why was I mentioning that? Because something about rules. I don't even remember why. That just came out as a thought. There you go. I don't even know why. Now that threw off the whole thing. I'm just going to have to start this entire video over. All right, well, we're going to reset everything back to the beginning and replay it because I forgot what I was talking about. No, that probably won't work either. Dang it. Okay, well, long story short, I do think... No, I don't think this guy has taken any damage yet, but we did destroy his escorts on either side, and he's got 1 vulnerable token on him from the Mac attack. Yay, Mac attack. Yes, the Mac cannons are a lot more devastating than I thought they would be. What I did do, though, to compensate for the fact that this was a cheatedly created battle group, is I limited my dice attacks to 20 dice. 20 dice is what came in the base game, because it's like 10 for his heavy Mac, plus 12 for his light Mac. That's already 22, and then you add in the light Mac attacks from these escorts, and that's a lot of dice unfairly rolling. So I just capped it at 20, but it was still very devastating. The missiles still capping at 20, and they're not as devastating because his ships are actually pretty strong. The Covenant ships, if it wasn't for cheating, I think I'd be struggling a lot more because his ships have cloaking, they're elusive. So, well, it's interesting because the Covenant ships at long range are very hard to hit, but they do get a penalty to their firepower for their plasma weaponry. So for them, it's finding that sweet spot of what is long range for the UNSC, but possibly short range for him, so he can fire at his... I don't know. It's very tough, I think, to balance that, because once we get close enough, some of his ships still retain their elusive attribute, but then they lose the cloaking. Cloaking goes away. And what that does is it makes it more difficult to damage him, because if he's elusive and cloaked, you don't get to re-roll dice, and if you roll a 2 on the die, it only counts as 1 point. So for him, he wants to stay at long range so that I can't damage him a whole lot, but that penalizes his firing because he actually gets a bonus to his attack roll when he's at close range. So there's some give and take with the forces, but but honestly, I think where I was going with that is he would be a lot more difficult to kill if I didn't create a cheated battle group. Same thing here. Actually, this, of my forces, this battle group was actually created good, and I didn't even realize it at first. But this is a legitimate battle group. 1 capital ship. These are only worth 1 battle rating each, and it's 3. So this was 6 originally. I did lose this group of frigates, and on his, he did lose another group of corvettes. But as you can see, maybe not from there, heavily damaged though. They've only got 1 damage track left, and that's pretty easy to burn through. Plus this one here has a vulnerable token, so he subtracts 1 success from defense. And all of these damage tokens, they subtract 1 from successful attack rolls. So this battle group is very much mauled up. And I've taken some damage, but still pretty combat effective. And really combat effective is still this group. But, you know, it was, you know, not legitimate. So they are really, really strong. I think what his mistake was really focusing on this ship first. This thing has amazingly good armor, and it's got 10, what's his damage track, is 10, 8, 5. So what that means is he has to do 10 points of damage to do one point of permanent damage, if you will. Put 1 damage token on there. And that's actually quite a bit. And the fact that he's got 5 titanium armor, that means I get to roll 5 dice. I've had no problems deflecting off everything he shot at this. And when he shot missiles at this one, it was really easy to deflect that even because I also have point defense of 6. So this thing is a monster. So what he should have been doing is going after all the escort stuff, because adding all that together is what made this group very, very devastating. Because the attack dice is just on that carrier is amazing. 12 dice for the light Mac, 15 dice for the missiles. So going straight ahead into the front arc, I mean, that's good. Plus, when you add in all the extra stuff. See, now, this is why the cheated group is so powerful. Because when you make your firing solutions, you take all similar weapons, so like Max. I don't remember, I might have to go look that up. I think it doesn't matter if you mix light and heavy Max. So the Max, that right there is 22 dice, 10 for him, but technically they can't be in the same battle group. That's what made this devastating. But to be fair, like I said, I did cap all dice rolls to 20, because once I add in the Mac dice for the escorts, this was like 22... this was like 30 dice. This would be like 30 dice to roll, and that would be a lot for anybody to try and defend against. So, you know, I try to do some things to compensate for the fact that it's not correct. But all in all, if he had been destroying some of these other groups are so much easier to destroy. And that's what I did over here, like with this group, and what I'm doing over here is I've actually focused a lot of firepower on the supporting elements. To get rid of the supporting elements first, then I can focus fire on the big guy. Plus, by taking away all those supporting elements, it really does drastically drop the firepower, because he's got, you know, less dice to add to his attack. I mean, the ship itself still rolls an incredible amount of dice just by itself, but it's really easy to take away those supporting additional dice. So that was my strategy with him, and that seemed to work. But he was really focusing in on the heavy groups. It wasn't until this last turn that he saw that that was what I was doing, and that was actually being very effective against him, that he decided to start shooting at the smaller elements. So instead of focusing everything here at the big one that can absorb a lot of potential damage, he started to spread it out to these little ones that are just kind of like cushions to absorb some hits. But this is what we're left with. So I've got part of this battle group here and he's got that little bit. He already told me what he wants to try and do is fly through this gap. So he wants to bring the big ship through here and then have this one come around. Cool, go for it. That looks awesome. Now that the escorts on the big guy are gone, then we're just going to focus fire everything we can at him and see what happens. Again, incredibly strong ship. This has got more damage deflection capability than this guy. The biggest difference between the Covenant, for those interested, if you're not familiar with this game set, the UNSC forces, they have something called titanium armor, and that means they get to roll that many defense dice when they take damage. However, they have on these ships 3 damage tracks. So essentially you could take like three points of damage that you permanently track. The 3rd point of damage destroys you. So the damage tracks, for instance, my first damage track on this ship is a 10, and then the second one is an 8. So basically it would take 10 points of damage to destroy that first track, to put a flame token on him, and then it would take 8 points of damage to destroy the second track, and then finally 5 points of damage to destroy him completely. So they get weaker over time. However, the titanium armor is only on that first damage track. So on that first bit of damage, I mean, I can re-roll, or I can roll 5 defense dice to subtract successes from him. And once that's gone, then there's no more titanium armor. I just have to, absorb the hits. If they're missiles, then you have point defense system. You could still try to shoot down some missiles, but against his plasma weapons, it's no good. You just start to really die. Once that first damage track on the UNSC is gone, you're just eating plasma. So the difference with the Covenant ships is they have these like defensive ray shields, and those shields are on all damage tracks. So no matter how much damage you do to them, they still get their shields, and they get points of defense to protect against missiles. Plus, they usually tend to have, their damage tracks tend to have like on average, one more point of damage that they can absorb. So their ships are a little more tanky. Again, their trick with them to be successful is finding that sweet spot in range to where you're doing damage, but taking advantage of your defensive systems. UNSC wants to be long range because that's where the magic happens for them. Yes, it makes it harder to hit the Covenant, but when they hit, it can be devastating because their missiles actually get a +1 to their offensive capability at long range, and the MAC cannons don't suffer any penalties for range. So for them, weapon firing is great at long range. So they try to go slow as possible, and then they're trying to stay at long range so that they're taking potentially less damage from the Covenant ships. And then the Covenant wants to charge and get up close. So the Covenants are brawlers, UNSC are like snipers. Now that's just the base ships that come with the game. There are other ships that you could get, and their strategies might play out a little bit different. But that's enough chit-chat on this. All together, this will probably be a semi-lengthy video. So what my son and I are going to do is, like I said, we're going to try to pick up tomorrow or the next day or as soon as we can, film out the last of the game. There's not much left for me to kill here. So what we'll do then after this is go back, recalculate points, and try to put together legitimate fleets. Now his fleets were already good, so we just want to find the point value so I know what to limit my own fleet to so I don't overwhelm him again. Other than that, fun game. If you like space games with capital ships, and there are tokens, they do have fighters and they do have boarding parties, so that is part of the game. So you can send boarding parties over to blow up critical elements, to cause havoc on the enemy ship. So you have that, plus the fighters. Then you have, the escorts. They can escort the capital ships, bombers, all that fun stuff that you would want. And I wish the company man, I do so wish that they were still in business. Because if you find stuff for the game, it is incredibly expensive. But if you can find people that are doing 3D prints, again, if you can find the Facebook group page for Halo Fleet Battle support, you're going to find that people are also creating their own PDF files for the token little sheets of paper here that go on and tell you the stats for the ship. And which is great for me because the base game starter set came with like a whole bunch of bases and stands. So really I just need ships and the PDF file so I can add new ships to the game. And I'm going to find out here, I'm going to look it up. The game did have, before it went out of business, each side had a super ship that took up 3 bases. So it was like 3 bases long. And I believe there are people who are offering 3D prints of that. It's like maybe $40, but you're going to get the super ship and then you get the printouts. So I think that would be like super awesome. So that's my goal, is to get the super ship for each side. And the base game came with like enough support elements that we're having a pretty lengthy game. So if I can just get those super capital ships, that would just be awesome for our tabletop Halo Fleet battles. And then we might paint these one day. My son wants to paint them. I might paint the UNSC, you know, primer gray. They're already gray, but, you know, put a good primer gray down, add in some shading and paint little windows and things on there. And he wants, I don't know what he wants to do with the Covenant, but he was like, well, I'm going to find out what house I want to do and things. So someday we'll paint these up. But that's enough chit-chatting on the game for now. Thank you for tuning in. What are your thoughts? Have you played the Halo Fleet Battle? Its sister game was Firestorm Armada, same company, Spartan Games. They tweaked the bucketed dice system a little bit from Firestorm Armada. That was one thing that some people don't like from Firestorm Armada. They have exploding dice results. So you could roll, you know, your bucket of dice, have a bunch of misses, but due to re-rolls, end up re-rolling until one attack would destroy a ship. And it does kind of suck to lose an attack to someone who keeps getting re-rolls and the exploding dice. But what the Halo Fleet system did was the exploding dice is capped at the original amount of dice you rolled. So you can't, most of the time, blow up a ship entirely based on re-rolls. You could, but it's not as devastating because you don't get to keep adding dice to your re-roll pool. There is a limit to what you can re-roll. But again, you know, just chit-chatting some things through. But yeah, what did you think of the game? Have you played it? Have you played Firestorm Armada? What are your thoughts and opinions? And I don't know, have you looked into, if you do have it, or have played, or continue to play, where do you get your ships and files and things like that from? Because I definitely would like to purchase, even though this is a dead game, there's actually still a surprising amount of fan support, and that's amazing. All right, well, that's good enough for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.